The Colorado River is an incredibly important water resource for the Southwest. About 40 million people rely on the Colorado for drinking water. It irrigates 5.5 million acres of agricultural land. It supports hydropower, about a $26 billion recreation economy, and demand is outpacing supply. And so we're using, on average, more water than the river provides.
Water is everything. If there's anything that's going to stop any growth in the West, it's going to be water.
If you want to do anything in the West in water, you've got to work with agriculture. We tend to use about 70 to 80% of water resources in the Colorado River Basin to grow food and fiber. So we work throughout the Colorado River Basin on partnerships with agriculture to improve water use for multiple purposes. Our focus is really on building relationships and building partnerships. In the Yampa River, we're working with the Maybelle irrigation district to do some really fundamental improvements to their system that are going to help them get more control over their operations.
This is the start of the whole Maybelle ditch, and so the water from the river actually enters the ditch here from these head gates in the diversion structure. Once it comes into the head gates, then it flows down approximately 18 miles for the farmers and ag people to use. It was hand-built in a lot of areas, and they started running water sometime around 1901. And it's not only very important for the ag community, but it's also important for the town of Maybelle. Things have changed in the last 20 years. We used to turn it on full blast in the spring and just let it run, and then in the fall we turned it off. And we just can't do that anymore. We have to manage our water. And so some of the projects that the Nature Conservancy has been helping us with is the management of that water.
We put check structures in their ditch. What those allow them to do is to check to build the water up so they can turn it out to the fields without having to run the ditch as full. So they can run less water in the ditch, but get it up to where it can get turned out to the fields. It also helps them slow the water down so they're not just having to run as much through to keep those levels up. Our next project with them will be to help line a portion of the ditch, and then hopefully a much bigger project to replace their diversion on the river itself.
The whole point of the project is to rebuild the head gates and make the diversion structure more accessible to the recreational folks, more fish friendly for the endangered fish, and more friendly for the irrigation district. And so we're hoping this project will be a win-win for everything.
We'll be able to automate their head gate. It'll make sure they get just the water that they need, and anything else will stay in the river. We're also working on the Price River in Utah to try and figure out how we can address certain flow needs in the lower Price River, which often goes dry in the summer months.
We're the second driest state in the United States. So we need to take care and use our water the best way we can.
And we started our partnership there working with the Carbon Canal Company.
Without Carbon Canal, I mean, there's 11,000 acres here that would not be serviced with water. We divert water out of the Price River. We have 250 shareholders. We deliver water to approximately 11,000 acres. We have 27 miles of open canal. Nature Conservancy found resources to get the flood control gate replaced. And then the next thing is the Olson Reservoir project.
The Olson Reservoir project, it's an old and relatively small reservoir in the Carbon Canal system. TNC recently purchased storage rights in the reservoir, and that's going to allow us to work with the canal company to manage our water to be able to deliver it to the river to meet some of those flow needs.
The goal is to bring water that's not being delivered to shareholders from the Carbon Canal over to Olson Reservoir and store it here, enhance the wetland habitat here, but also store it so that we can later strategically release it to the lower Price River, which normally goes dry around July or August to the detriment of rare fish.
This is water that they call it carry water, right? It's water they use to help move water that they need for their farmers and shareholders. And then at the end of the system, that water just, basically dumps out into the desert.
The benefits are many. The shareholders in the Carbon Canal Company will benefit because we will pay fair market value for that water. Also, we're going to replace some of their head gates so that they can better manage their water.
If this can go through, it helps the future generations here to have more of a stable flow of water that would, benefit everybody down the line. Not only our operation, it might keep alive the species that we have in here. Ranching operations in the West is a story. They mean a lot to a lot of people. It's our job to help to take care of all of it. And that's what I see makes it a little bit easier to do our job.
We're going to bring a lake back to life out in the middle of the desert down there. Things will be a lot different at Olson Reservoir again. It'll be more like when I grew up. There'll be wildlife there, there'll be ducks. It'll just bring life back to that area where it has kind of slipped away at this point because of there's lack of water there. Because it always ties back to water. And the water's the number one thing. And you're not going to have wildlife, we're not going to have a healthy environment here if we don't have the water here. And so where we have an opportunity to store some of this water instead of it just flowing on downstream, I think it's extremely important for the area.
In the Grand Valley, western Colorado, the primary project that we've worked on over the last few years is with the Grand Valley Water Users Association. They provide irrigation water for about 24,000 acres, and we've been working with them on what we call a conserved consumptive use pilot project, which would work with willing landowners to temporarily reduce their water use on their properties through sort of a number of practices. Then the Water Users Association would make sure they could track and account for that water. And working with them, we were able to figure out a mechanism to then return that water to the river, both for the benefit of fish species in the Colorado River here, but also for that downstream water security benefit where it can help bolster those reservoir levels.
Well, when we first started talking about water banking or conserved consumptive use, doing this pilot program, I was very against it. It, to me as a farmer, don't make any sense not farming productive ground. As we kept getting into it and kept discussing it and arguing about it, I've become to see it as necessary. I'm not stupid and I know the future, and the future is that we're going to have to learn better ways to conserve water.
Farmers want to farm, that's what they do, and talking to them about, not farming and not using their water is a challenging conversation.
A lot of late nights arguing.
God, yeah. The conversation was really a big part of the benefit of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And there's just no other way to have it than to kind of fight your way through it.
Where we got to is that it's really important to have ag voices in the bigger conversations about what we need to do to tackle these broader challenges on the Colorado River. And this was one way that they could really get a seat at the table and help shape some of those conversations about, what solutions we need and what might work and what might not. At a more fundamental level, the people that participated were compensated. We asked them not to go crop and to leave their water in the river, and that's an economic decision for them. And that worked out really well for some farmers. They were able to sort of think of a water sharing program as another rotational crop.
When we first got involved with the Nature Conservancy, there was this stigma that the ag community needs to stay away from environmental groups and so forth. And I've learned working with them on a regular basis that their goals and my goals and the ditch company's goals are the same.
We align more with Nature Conservancy than we disagree with Nature Conservancy. I can truly say that. And they've worked really hard to make it even easier for us to align with them. We could see they weren't here to take our water. And that's always the big concern. I mean, water's the lifeblood of the West, and we're in a desert, so it's a big deal.
Water is the most precious thing we have. Our world revolves around it. You can't live without it. It's hard to make money without water.
You don't farm to get rich. Farming and agriculture is a way of life. And you gotta love the outdoors. You gotta love the thrill of putting that seed in the ground and seeing it grow to maturity and raising a healthy plant and working the land, it's a way of life. And I guess when it comes down to it, that's what I would like to see protected here, is a way of life.